Alright, so we're going to start out on this video looking at the functions that you can do on the calculator from section 2.4. So, since I got two functions here, I'm going to put f of x into y1 on my calculator and g of x into y2. So I'm going to hit y equals. So y1 is going to be negative 19x plus 9. Then I'm going to arrow down to y2 and put in x squared plus 12. So I got them into my y1 and y2. So remember, y1 is f of x, y2 is g of x. So I'm going to quit that screen, and I'm going to use my variables that I showed y'all the other day. So they're giving me two numbers to put in, and negative 3 for both of these. So I'm going to go to member variables, y variables, hit enter for function. I'm going to put in my f of x first, which is y1. So in parentheses, I'm going to put negative 3, close the parentheses, and then it's plus g, which I put in y2, so I hit variables, go to y variables, enter on function, arrow down to y2 and hit enter, and then I'm going to use parentheses for y2 and put in negative 3. So now I got f of x plus g of x, or f of negative 3 plus g of negative 3, which equals 87. Alright, so let's go to the next one. I'm going to go back to y equals, clear both of those, go back to y1, I'm going to put in negative 17x plus 15, arrow down to y2, we're going to put in x squared plus 14. So I'm going to quit that screen, and then I'm going to put in, this will be my y1, which is f of x, y2, which is g of x. So we're going to do f of 10, which will be y1 of 10, so variables, y variables, enter for function, enter for y1, put 10 in parentheses. Then minus g of 10, which will be y2, so go to variables, y variables, enter, go to y2, enter, because that's our g of x, and in parentheses, they got a 10. Close parentheses and enter, and we get negative 269. Alright, so now that we're getting good at that method, I'm going to show you another thing you can do to these and keep everything in the graphing section. So I can go to y equals and clear that and clear that. So y1 will be negative 19x plus 11. I'm going to go to y2, which will be my g of x, x squared plus 13. Now, what I'm going to do is go down to y3 and make a column in here that says f times g, but I'm going to do y1 times y2. Okay? So right here I'm going to go to my variables, get my y1 when I get the function, then I'm going to put times, and then go to variables, y variables, function, and get y2. So now I'm going to make a column in my table that I can find these values at. So when I hit second graph to get my table, I want to find f of negative 1 times g of negative 1. So since I made that in my third column, I'm going to go to x value of negative 1. There's the value at y1, value at y2. I'm going to go over here to y3, and I get 420. So let me show you something. I'm going to quit that screen, and let's do it the other way. Variables, y variables, enter on function, enter on y1. Let's put in a negative 1 because that's our f. Times variables, y variables, enter. Go to y2 and hit enter. In parentheses, we had a negative 1. Close parentheses. So there's my f of negative 1 times g of negative 1, which equals 420. Same answer, either way you go. Alright, so let's go to the next one. We're going to go to y equals. I'm going to clear everybody out. And I'm going to put y1 is going to be negative 5x plus 17. Go to y2. I'm going to make that x squared plus 10. Alright, so I'm going to quit the screen and use my variables again. So this is division, so I'm going to go to variables, y variables, enter for y1, and it's got y1 as negative 7, so put negative 7 in parentheses. Alright, that fraction bar means division. And then we got g of negative 7, so variables, y variables, enter. Go down to y2 and enter, and put in a negative 7. Alright, when I hit enter, I get a fraction. Let's see if that'll turn that back into a fraction by hitting math and enter twice. And we get, what's that, 52 over 59. Okay, so I did the division this way especially because if you get a decimal on that table, it's hard to turn that into a fraction unless you copy it down and then try to get the calculator to convert it over for you. Alright, let's do the next problem. Go to y equals, clear and clear. So y1 looks like I'm putting in x squared minus 2. So x squared minus 2. Go to y2, we're putting in 7 minus x. Alright, so I got both of them in. I'm going to quit the screen. And this is f minus g of 10. Remember, f minus g of 10 is f of 10 minus g of 10. So let's put that in. Variables, y variables, enter. Enter for y1, let's put in a 10. And then it's minus. Go to variables and get y2 now. And put in a 10. And then when we hit enter, we get 101. Alright, y'all, one more example on this page. We got division. So we're going to go back to y equals and clear the screens. We're going to put in x squared minus 10. And then go to y2, put in 2 minus x. And then I'm going to quit that screen. And I got f divided by g of negative 1, which is f of negative 1 divided by g of negative 1. Alright, so let's get f, which is my y1. So variables, y variables, enter, enter. We're going to put in a negative 1 divided by g of negative 1, which is my y2. So go get that y2, put in a negative 1, and enter. And we get a negative 3. Alright, so what we're going to do now is get into the 9.1 composition of functions, because that's basically still doing the function stuff, and there were 3 examples that we could use the calculator for on it. And I'm going to do the same thing with my y1 and y2, okay? Now remember, f of g is the same as f of g of x. G of f is the same as g of f of x. Okay? Alright, so let's go. Y equals, let's clear out them screens. Go back to y1, put in 4x minus 1. Go to y2, put in x squared minus 2. Alright, I'm going to quit that screen, because I'm going to do my y1 and y2 again. Now what I'm going to do on here, since this is f of g of x, I'm going to put in y1 parentheses of y2 of negative 5, and then close both parentheses, because that's the value they want me to evaluate. So let's get that in there and see what that's going to give us. So variables, y variables, enter for y1, put parentheses. Go get that y2 by going to variables, y variables, function, arrow down to y2, hit enter, put our parentheses up, put in that negative 5, and then close the parentheses around the negative 5, and close the parentheses around the y squared, y2. Alright, so that looks like what we got. Hit enter, and we get 91. So let's do this one now, g of f of x. So this one's going to look like a y2 of y1 of 7. Okay, we're going the same thing, but remember, g is going to be y2 and f will be y1. So go back to your graphs, y equals, and hit clear on those. So let's put in 3x plus 3. Arrow down and put in an x squared minus 4x minus 5. And notice you got to use the subtraction on that, because if you use this negative key on the bottom, it'll multiply instead of do what you want on this, okay? Alright, so we can quit the screen. We got those in. So let's go get y2. So variables, y variables, enter. Arrow down to y2, put that on the screen, and put parentheses. Then get y1 by going to variables, y variables, enter. Enter for y1, parentheses, put into 7, close both parentheses. Hit enter, and we will get 475. And then finally, let's go to this last one. Go to y equals, clear both those out. 4x plus 9. Go down to y2, put in an x to the third. So several ways you can do that. You could hit the x key. This is what I call the caret key. When I hit it, I hit my 3. That puts in an exponent. Now on new calculators, when you hit that caret key, it's going to be by the x, and it's going to arrow up, and you would just put the 3 there. Okay? Now, so we got them in. We're going to hit second quit, get off that screen. F of g of negative 4 will be y1 of y2 of a negative 4. F of g of negative 4. Alright, so let's go get them variables. Variables, y variables, enter. Enter for y1, parentheses. Let's get y2, variables, y variables, enter for function. Go down to y2 and enter. Parentheses, put in a negative 4, close both parentheses, and we get negative 247. Now remember, you can still do these all by hand by using the notes I gave you for section 9.1, okay? So good luck, and that's it.